So for the topic of today's sermon, Luang Por Thoon teaches that the clinging to the sense of ego is what causes the suffering of people in this world. Now this is something that a lot of Buddhists talk about. They say, no self, there's no self, don't cling to the self. But it's such a complicated topic and it's so hard to understand. So let's make it a little bit easier. What kind of things do we consider the self? Well, you ever hear somebody say, hey, you talk too much, and then the person responds, hey, that's just how I am. Or someone says, hey, stop talking so straightforward, stop saying what you think. It's like, hey, that's just how I was raised. That's what I believe, that's who I am. And because of that, that's the way we stay. And now these are the kind of things that come from our attachment to our sense of self. You believe that you're a certain way. I'm a clean person. I always speak the truth. I'm not afraid of anyone. I do what I say what I do. I don't back down. I fight when I have to. These are all things that we believe are ourselves. And because of this, we have to fight other people for it. So when someone says, hey, you talk too much, then you have to say, well, this is how I am. If you don't like it, too bad. I don't care what you think. This is because you have to fight. And when we fight, what happens is either there's someone who wins or loses. But in actuality, everyone loses. Because nothing good ever comes from anger and suffering for other people. There's so many things that we believe that we are. Like for example, if someone says something bad about a Thai person, how do you feel? Just the other day, Luang Pinat told me a story about how there was a young man who shot another young man on the bus. When I heard this story, I thought, oh, how sad, and then forgot about it. And then Luang Pinat says, oh, the guy who shot the other guy, he was a Thai guy. And right when he said he was Thai, 100 things went into my mind. Was he one of our temple members? Do we know him? Does someone that we know him? What will Americans think of Thai people now? Is this going to give Thai people a bad name? Is this going to make Thai people live harder in this country, in this city? How come all of these things caused suffering inside of me, caused suffering inside of my mind? Because I associate with being Thai. I associate with the concept of being Thai. And because of that, that's where my suffering comes from. Just because people dislike Thai people or think badly of Thai people doesn't necessarily affect us, doesn't necessarily affect me. Not necessarily. You might not ever meet those people that think in this way. There's so many things that are considered impermanent in thinking this way. But because of our clinging to these certain senses of ego, which is I'm Thai, I'm this, I'm that, then that's why we suffer. For someone like me, it's the worst of both worlds. Not the best of both worlds, the worst of both worlds. If someone says Thai people are bad, I say, oh, I feel that too because I'm Thai. And if Thai people say, well, Americans are bad too, then I feel it also, oh, I'm American also. So then because of my two senses of identity, then I have to suffer twice as much as other people. And so this is what Luang Por Thoon means in this, when he says, because of the ego, because of our clinging to the ego, that is where suffering comes from. So it's our job as Buddhists to contemplate and try to understand whether or not we truly are defined by these things or whether we define these concepts.